Hey, welcome. Yes, I'm back. Simmons says back. Simmons says is back. The back of Simmons says. I'm sitting in a hotel in Woburn, Massachusetts, getting ready to attend the Northeast Comic Expo, which is a 2-day event, and I'm a guest here, making guest appearances, I guess. And I sort of stumbled across something that I, thought about and written about weeks ago. And life has a tendency to sometimes you put things on the shelf and sometimes you pull them down again. And especially as an artist, as a writer, sometimes you put sketches aside, notes aside, story ideas aside, whole novels that you wrote at one point in your life aside. And then one day, rummaging through your mind or the closet, you actually find them again. And so I pulled this thought out here, and I thought, let me comment on it. Again, this was a little time back, but I'd heard someone voice that on their journey to becoming a writer, they stopped, at some point to evaluate why they were pursuing it. Why do that? They actually came to realize that they were not meant to be a writer. They felt instead that they were actually meant to aid other writers in pursuing their careers and sort of solidifying that as a career as opposed to an aspiration or a dream or a goal or whatever. And the comment brought me back to a moment in my life when, I asked that same question. At that point, I'd been a professional writer for several years. I'd done a number of different projects. But also at that point, life had placed a number of trials and tribulations, as my grandparents used to say. But anyway, a lot of obstacles in my path, and it sort of made me start to rethink why I was doing what I was doing. How did I feel about that and myself and the value of my work? And I was really starting to feel that the value of my work had diminished. That whatever I had to say wasn't of interest to the masses anymore, or even to a niche of the masses. And so I stopped. I stopped writing for quite a while. The answer to my question was slow in coming. As I said, I stopped writing and I pondered it as I did other things, but the answer was it crawled up out of a deep place. And partially that was because I realized I wasn't really asking the right question. In effect, I had asked, why am I writing? Am I really a writer? Blah, blah, blah. And what I should have been asking was, what made me tick? What brought me joy? What makes me feel alive? What makes me excited about each new day? And that sort of thing. That answer was and still is telling stories. There's certainly the love of my life, and there are my children, and there's all of those things, and that's a big part of who I am and all. But when I look back on my life before her, before the kids, before dating, before any of that stuff, it was always telling stories. It was always my imagination. It was always creating things. Whether I was an only child, so creating things by myself, or with my toys and action figures, or with friends. I was the idea guy. I was the guy who said, well, let's try this, and okay, what if so and so was doing this, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that, and I'm going to be. I was that guy. I was that kid, and as a child and then later as a professional actor and then as an author and a playwright and a teacher, all of those times, I love telling stories. I love conjuring up images and characters and perceptions and conceptions and asking questions to get people thinking and excited. I love weaving through all of that, taking all those elements, sequentially, and pulling them together into an experience that people can take away with them in their memory or holding in their hand or nowadays on their handheld, apparatus. And once I embraced who I was and how this was a part of me, I felt a true loss. I felt, you know, what had I been doing? Why had I stopped? And in that time that I wasn't doing it, what ideas had I ignored, or what stories and moments, either real life or fictional, had I chosen to bury? You know, and the more I opened up to seeing those things again, finding maybe the ones I'd misplaced, but also the new ones that were coming to me, the more alive I felt again, the more energized I became, the bolder and more excited about, life and facing life and making the most of the time that I have on this planet. Now, I'm not sure what I would have done if the response to my question had been, something totally different. I have no idea. Hopefully I would have made, the adjustments and pursued that thing and been a good and better person, and that, better than the person who was, sad at that time. Hopefully I would have, made more of my life just going in a different direction. But thankfully, in finding me, I found my way back to writing. And I write to tell stories. And I tell stories because I can. And so should you. See you next time.